Teacher C.T. Muga is joined by two teachers today in the studio. Hey.
And C.T. Muga is happy because C.T. Muga is a teacher.
Hey. C.T. Muga, former headmaster, joined by current head teacher of the Makini State House campus, Jean Wachira, and the deputy head teacher, Jacob Asenje, who is from the Makini Junior Secondary. Good morning, Walimu.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, wow.
Thank you very much for joining us, Walimu. When I just want to start straight up with you, Jean. When you hear this proverb, what does it mean? What are the people of Mauritania saying?
Oh, which proverb?
This one by CT.
Before eating, open your mouth.
Oh. Before eating, open your mouth. I'll say that before you do anything, it's good to get prepared. You can't eat with your mouth closed. Before you engage on anything, it's very important that at least you have a directive. You know what is it that you really need to do about it. So you have to focus. Mm-hmm. Before you eat, you've got to have your mouth open.
Focus. Mwalimu, Jacob, do you also agree?
I agree with Mwalimu Jean that this proverb is taking us to the need to take a personal initiative. If for things to work for you, you need to start by taking a personal initiative.
All right. So now Alimu introduce us to Makini schools. I want to start with Eugene. Mm-hmm. The Makini schools, and then you tell us the various campuses that you have and how you come from the State House campus. Mm-hmm. And then now we are going into junior secondary transition, and Mwalimu Jacob will tell us about junior secondary in Makini.
All right. Makini School, we've got campuses both here in Nairobi and in Kisumu. And I will begin with the ones in Nairobi. And in Nairobi, we've got the preschool, we've got the junior school, we've got the middle school, the upper school, we've got high school, and we also have got the Cambridge campus. And now the state, all these are in one campus, but there is the State House campus, which is a little bit far away from the other one because it's along State House Avenue.
Do you have from preschool in State House?
Yes,
State House,
State House is from preschool. It is a primary. We want to align with the CBC because in CBC primary is going to be up to grade 6, and that is what we are aligning up to. But currently we are up to grade 5. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then now going beyond that, we're going to junior secondary.
Yes.
Which is where Mwalimu Jacob comes in, deputy head teacher at the junior secondary. Tell us now about that.
Yeah, junior secondary is here with us. And it's actually exciting that we are going to receive the first cohort of learners under the CBC curriculum joining junior secondary next year. So we have junior secondary in Nairobi, and we also have junior secondary in Kisumu, Kibos. So we have two campuses under Makini School that will be offering junior secondary under the CBC curriculum.
Have you created something new? Did you repurpose part of your other campuses into now junior secondary?
Yeah, thank you. Currently, what is going to be our junior secondary has been our upper school section. Upper school section was in charge of class 6 up to class 8. Now the class 6, which is now grade 6, has been moved to the primary section. Mm-hmm. So the section that was upper primary now becomes the junior secondary.
So it's still the same. It's just now you've renamed into junior secondary.
Into junior secondary.
Very many questions will emerge out of this. Go.
All right. So I guess, first of all, what has the transition been like? Because there's been a lot of rumblings. So what are we going to do? We don't have enough in terms. And this is from around the country, looking at the transition now, because this is the first transition that we will have from now primary to junior secondary before we now get to upper secondary. So what has the transition been like? There's been the complete complaining about inadequate facility, having to move. Will you have to train teachers to handle junior secondary learning and such? So what has that been like, and what have you had to put in place to ensure that this transition happens smoothly? Because we're a month out. A month or so out of, maybe 2 months, because now we will get back into the normal system come end of January next year. So what has that been like? And I guess for both of you.
Junior secondary, we have been preparing for junior secondary for a while now, in readiness to receive the first group next year. We have restructured our facilities, and we have also developed new facilities that will respond to the requirements of the curriculum designs of the junior secondary. We have come up with the laboratories, that is the science laboratory, well equipped to respond to the needs of integrated science at junior secondary level. We have also equipped other laboratories, including the home science laboratory and also the computer laboratory. Because if you look at the design and the subjects that will be offered at junior secondary, computer science is one of the optional subjects that the learners will be expected to pick. And we are alive to the fact that ICT remains an integral part as far as innovation and the delivery of designs are concerned. Therefore, we have really invested more on IT and on the computer laboratory to respond to these needs of junior secondary.
Also to add on to that, sometimes we complain because of lack of knowledge.
Sure.
And as teachers from where we sit, we know that the content, the materials that will be used in junior secondary, especially in grade 7, they've already been produced. KICD, which is the body that does that work, has already done that. So when we complain, some of the people don't even know that these are already in progress. There is also retooling, the training of the teachers. It has been ongoing. And majority of the teachers, even from the public schools, they are also being trained by KICD, who are the content developers. Yeah.
Now, talk of content developers, from what Mwalimu Jacob has just mentioned, it means beyond just a curriculum and beyond just the material, the learning material that you require, the other preparations a school must make.
Yes.
Now, in your case, will the transition simply mean moving students into a space that already exists with existing facilities? And if not, what else have you had to add to the facilities you have so that you can actually meet the requirements of the system?
Yeah, there's a learning area which was introduced in grade 4, that is agriculture. Our section had never developed the agricultural plots, since we were not really doing agriculture as a subject. Now, in junior secondary, agriculture is one of the core subjects. And I think this is going to drive the agro-based economy. So the school has gone ahead to set aside some agricultural demonstration plots. And we are also exploring the option of doing urban agriculture. Yeah, where we will make use of the limited spaces available within the school to ensure that agriculture is done as practical and a technical subject.
You know, when you say you are going to use the available space to look at urban agriculture, just walk us through what is in your mind, and given what you think, what you have in, what you're thinking of working on, what constitutes this concept of urban agriculture?
Okay, now urban agriculture, as we have observed in other countries, we can make use of the vertical space, the aerial space, where you don't have the land. We can make use of hanging gardens, still to do these agricultural projects. So even if we don't have the physical land, we can we can be innovative enough and come up with these gardens, even on the roof of buildings, and still ensure that learners are able to do agriculture.
For agriculture to be practical, beyond just perhaps subsistence, the subsistence capacity, one in an urban setting will inevitably think of the commercial potential or the value of what we're referring to as urban agriculture. Now, when you look at the curriculum that has been provided, do you think it is adequate to actually focus the mind of the students to understanding what we've just said in terms of what's available and to expanding it beyond what already exists to the point where beyond it just being subsistence, it can actually be commercial?
Yes, because if you look at the curriculum designs at the junior secondary school level, it is broad-based. It's a broad-based curriculum which enables the learners to explore. So the learners at this level will be introduced to the concepts of agriculture, which they have been doing from grade 4. Like this year, the grade 6s are doing projects such as poultry farming. So when you introduce the learners to these simple projects, and then at some point you introduce the entrepreneurial aspects within the projects, then they are able to see that beyond the subsistence agriculture, we can still go the commercial agriculture.
Looking at the transition, Jean, I'm going to contribute to that. But looking at the transition then from what was previously a curricular system, and then going now full throttle into CBC, what are your thoughts about this inherently? Of what it will then have in terms of impact on the learning of learners in the country. Do you think that this particular curriculum actually is the way to go moving forward?
I totally agree. I just feel that if CBC is given the time, the support that it requires, this is what this country requires, to have learners who will be fully independent when they get into their career paths. They are able to make the proper choices in their career path because it is guiding them from the lower stages of junior secondary. Unlike maybe in this other system whereby we were not getting the career guidance, but now from the junior secondary, these learners will be guided onto the career. So they get with a clear mind of what exactly a learner wants to pursue.
Jean, just take us through
Yes.
the differences between 844 and CBC. I mean, you have taught both.
Yes, I have.
You have risen through the ranks. By
Yes.
the time you got to a head teacher, you had understood 844 completely.
Yes.
What is the difference?
I'll actually start by saying that I'm a product of 844. So I can never demonize it.
There you go.
So the main shift that I have seen in CBC and in 844, one, it is in assessment. We were so much into scores and grading in 844, which is not there in the CBC. In CBC, we want to look at skills and values that these learners will acquire in the learning, which was not emphasized in 844. In 844, again, I want to look at the time that was being taken in primary. We were taking 8 years in primary, and then one assessment only, the 4 days that you sit for your KCPE, will determine how you go forward from there. But in CBC, this is gradual because the work that you do in grade 4, in grade 5, and in grade 6 will cumulatively give you a direction in when you're joining the junior secondary. Yeah.
Some of the complaints that you hear from parents,
Yes.
let's start with the parents,
Yes.
is increased workload.
Yes.
It sounds like there's a lot more work in CBC than in 844. Is this true?
Because of the practical based, and I go back to what I said, that lack of knowledge, there is this principle that is known as parental engagement and empowerment. When parents do not understand their position in education of their children, that is when now we shall grumble and say that the parents have been overburdened. But I don't want to run away and say that the teachers have not also given majority of the work, like go and research, go and do this with your parents, which is supposed to be done at school. So yes, parents have complained, and I kind of agree with them. But the basic, for me, the bottom line would be, let the parents know what is expected of a parent. We educate the parents, let them understand up to what are they supposed to go. When I tell a child to go home and do A, B, C, D, let this child only be that your work as the parent is to facilitate, not to do. But what the parents have been doing is to do other than facilitating. So they end up feeling that the work is too much for them.
Maybe to offer into terms of reasons as to why that could be, is that I agree that there's not full understanding of what the role of parents is here. Because if you're looking at nurturing, as you've spoken of, if you're looking at skills and value, if you're asked as a child to go and replicate the solar system, for example, this teacher, from the point that they are at, want to see how best this child will be able to do it on their own. The parent's understanding may be that what you're looking for is a perfect specimen. And that is why they lend their hand of, I want to call it help, right?
Yeah.
So that it comes out perfect, because you're thinking that this child is going to be graded on the perfect end, as opposed to seeing the process of how this child is thinking.
And their own
learned.
progression
And
as
their
well.
own
Exactly.
progression.
Exactly.
So now maybe that explanation of that thing that I've just said is what is missing in all of this.
Yes.
Because parents believe, look, this child needs to pass this thing, right? As opposed to this teacher is looking to see how this child is progressing. There's a huge gap in that communication. How can we close it?
I think how we should close it is just as I have said, to empower the parents. We train on the parents, to educate the parents, to know up to what point is their help expected. And also to understand that it is not about the grading. It is about the skills that the learners will acquire in the process of making whatever that they have been asked to make. It is not about the grading. It's about the skills, the values, the attitudes that this child is going to acquire in the process of coming up with whatever that they have been asked. But it is not about the final product for me to come and see this is very excellent. I give you exceeding expectations, and yet I know that at the back of my mind, there has been a hand.
Let's be practical just for a minute, because I know Eric, but let's be practical.
Yes.
So, because these are the things that parents have complained about
Yes.
far and wide. You come home, forget about the transport early in the morning and late in the evening, because now these are the things that we are saying. You come home at 6:30 p.m. and in this diary, which is what the mode of communication then between, parent, child, teacher.
Teachers.
And you're asked to make something for which you need, and they say use locally available materials in the house to make X, Y, Z. So the assumption is that these materials are locally available. It's 6:30 in the evening. How are you starting to find these things? And this is why a lot of parents then run into this thing of doing it for the child, because the time is short, the expectation is high. So will the communication not also be in advance of time? Preparation, pre-assignments. This is one of the things that parents are complaining about. Can you tell us on Monday that this thing is due on Friday, as opposed to Monday evening is due tomorrow morning?
Let me say it is two-way, whereby the teacher has to take his or her role, and also don't just ambush the parents that this is what I want. For example, in our school, we give a timeline of 4 days. We say, do not ask for something to be made by tomorrow. We put it in the diaries, and it has to be 4 days, a timeline of 4 days. Whatever that you need, there has to be a timeline for 4 days. So again, now I throw back to us as the teachers, as the educators. Let's give ample time to the parents. Let's not ambush them, and let's train them. Let them know their stand. Let them know their position. Let them know where their boundaries are.
Jacob, come in before we take a break.
Yeah, I think parental engagement is very key on the education of a child. And as a key principle under CBC, the way I understand parental engagement is, one, a parent should provide an enabling environment where the learner can do those simple projects or assignments. Secondly, the parent should provide the needed support. And this support can be in terms of availing these materials so that the learner or this particular child can do this project. But it doesn't in any way suggest that the parent should do the project for the child, because we are assessing the skills, just as Madam Jean has mentioned. We are assessing the ability of this learner. It is not about the end product, but the process. Is the learner able to go through the process, the procedure, in order to make or to come up with the project that the learner has been assigned?
City has very many things that he wants to say. He's been shaking his head, nodding, shaking, nodding. He'll come in after the break. It's 28 minutes to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We are talking about the transition from from primary to junior secondary school. And we're joined by Jean Wachira. She's the head teacher at the Makini State House campus. This is from the primary school. And then we have the deputy head teacher of the Makini Junior Secondary School, Jacob Asenje. We are talking about that transition. First of all, trying to understand CBC, and then the things that we all need to know about this transition that's going to take place in January.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
There's a grade 6, a standard 8, and Form 4 exams. We know Form 4, they'll be graded, they'll be told you got an A, you got a B, you got a C+, you get to campus, or you qualify for university, or you don't.
We just finished another one, by the way, the MLP for the grade 3s now. That just finished 2 days ago, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Higher. We know standard 8 will be told, this is what you scored, and based on that, you're either going to a national school, an extra county school, a county school, a sub-county school. Now, your pupils, Mwalimu,
Yes.
when they sit this exam, what is Jacob going to look for to admit children to the junior secondary school?
First of all, moving from the primary to the junior secondary, it is just, we want 100% transition. And there will be no grading about giving how many the child has gotten the marks, but what the children don't compete against each other, but they compete against a standard. We talk about exceeding expectations, we talk about meeting expectations, we talk about below expectations, and even approaching expectations. So
There's no struggling?
approaching.
Okay.
Approaching. We don't call them struggling, but we say they are approaching the expectations. That is the standard.
Okay.
So
Trying to be polite. Sour.
So what Mr. Jacob will be looking at when they are being admitted, first of all, is 100% transition. We don't want to lock out any child. We want all the children to transit from the primary to the junior secondary. But there are assessments that they have been doing. We no longer talk about exams in CBC. There's some assessments that these children have been doing, like what we've just talked about that they ended last week. And these assessments, they are both practical and sit-in. We start with, in second term, they do the practical based, the monitoring learners progress, that is MLPs, and then we've got the sit-ins, whereby now they sit the papers. The MLP is practical based, whereby learners are given themes and they run with it on practical basis. So what we have now as the guidelines that we have been given is that, we shall still know against the standards. These children will have 60, it is out of 100%. So 60% will be cumulative of what they have covered in upper primary, that is grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6. And grade 6, then the one that they're going to sit the PSEA, which will be cater for 40% to give 100%. That is not to guide the learners into which schools that they are supposed to go. That is not to grade the learners or to say that you qualify for this school and this school. It is just to give the teachers of an understanding of where this child is coming from and where the child is going, to be able to help the child.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Jacob, are we saying that in junior secondary we don't have extra county, sub-county, national?
Yeah, well, thank you. If you look at the guidelines that were provided by NECA on the selection of schools into junior secondary, that those categories are still there.
Mm-hmm.
Those categories are still there, but there will be very minimal, if no emphasis on the grades, the scores, because we are talking about assessment and not exams. And as I said before, junior secondary is a broad-based curriculum which enables the learner to explore their abilities, their potentials, and interests in order to choose the subjects that they will take in senior school. So at this particular level, we are not really doing placement. That's why it's not attached to the grading system. Yeah, but we will look at the learner's profile, which has been accumulated from grade 3, because they have just, as she said, they have just done an exam. So there are records of those learners at grade 3 level. That is the early years assessment. Grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, they do assessments, school-based assessments, which contribute to the 60% of what this learner will be getting at the end of the primary school.
Which is not a grade.
Which is not a grade. At this particular time, because it is accumulated, we will see against the standard how many learners are exceeding expectation as per the standard.
Okay.
How many are meeting? How many are approaching?
So how do you determine this expectation? How do you know that this expectation has been met, it's being met, it might be met? How do you determine it?
It goes back to the tasks that these learners are given.
Okay,
Yes.
which means there is a point, there are certain activities that you must have completed.
Yes.
And are we saying that with those activities, so what is it commensurate to? Are we saying that by the time a learner is 6 years old, they should be able to do 1, 2, 3 in a certain manner? By the time they're 7, we expect that they should be able to perform in this way. Is it against that you peg this expectation?
It is against the competencies.
All right.
They are competencies.
Okay,
that,
how do you measure the competence? How do you determine that this child is competent? This one is trying to be competent.
This
Hasn't
one is
quite gotten
approaching
there
competency.
yet. Yes, this one might never be competent. How do you determine this?
There are tools that are used
Yes.
in the new curriculum. One of them is the observation schedule. As you give the learners the task, the teacher is there. The teacher is observing how each learner is executing the task that they have been given.
Okay.
We have rating scales, we have rubrics, and so on and so forth.
All right, now.
So we have the measure that we are going to use to rate. Yeah.
Now, student-teacher ratio. When you look at public schools and you look at the teacher-student ratio, the very thing that you've just discussed, how will it be made practical? Because how is a teacher going to determine and measure all these things when you have 60 students in a class? And you want to ensure that each student gets a fair shake and you are able to determine these competencies that you're speaking of.
Actually, that is one of the challenges in the implementation of the CBC curriculum, the teacher-pupil ratio. Yeah, because just as I've said, using those tools that I've just mentioned, it requires very close monitoring of what the learner is doing. Therefore, if you have a class of 1:90 or 60, then it becomes a challenge. But still, we have groups, because the CBC curriculum emphasizes on a group approach. So this larger class can still be broken down into groups, so that the teacher is able to move from one group to another, as opposed to observing the whole class, what every learner is doing in the whole class.
But
Especially,
then, Mwalimu, then you are going to be looking at group achievements and yet the individual is the one we want to assess. Yes, you can assess what the group can do. Fine.
Yes.
So are you then going to say that what the group can do is what will be representative of the individuals within the group? How then will we have assessed the individuals?
If learner A
Yes.
is in group 2,
Yes.
and there is a task that has been given to group 2,
Yes.
we will also want to observe how learner A is contributing in that particular group.
Yes.
Yes. So at the end of it all, I'll have done the group assessment, but I've also done the individual assessment.
Now, let me go to a time when I was a teacher, okay? When this very thing you've discussed involved homework. You give me the homework, I mark. When I mark, I'm assessing your understanding of it. The process of teaching, you're talking about 40 minutes.
Yes.
And you're talking about the set induction, how it is you introduce a subject. I used to teach the English language, okay? You take 10 to 15 minutes determining whether they understand the principles. And as a quick assessment, you ask the question, students answer. Then you give a small exercise, the answer. You ask students to respond by telling you how it is they've responded. You're assessing the understanding of it. Then you give the homework. Now, 40 students in a class, and it's not the only class you're teaching. If it was a challenge, then even simply ensuring that you're able to grade, mark, and present and discuss whatever it is that your finding was. Again, you're not going back to the numbers because these numbers have increased. And if you talk about public institutions, the numbers, as you say correctly, are a challenge. Not only do I see a challenge in actually determining the very things that we set out to do, but I see a challenge even in the resources that are required to ensure that these assessments achieve the goal for which they were intended.
Yeah, actually, from what you have just said, things have changed a bit in terms of pedagogy. So it is no longer the teacher who is the center of knowledge. Mm-hmm. But under CBC curriculum, it is learner-centered. So we are looking at the key inquiry question. What is the key inquiry question in this particular lesson? This can even be given to the learners prior to the lesson. It is research-based, and there is free exploration.
Even in the time when ancient crocs like myself were teaching, it was learner-based. Even our training we're trained to ensure that the process was student-centered. So, you know what I'm trying to tell you is that we are talking about changes, and in principle, I don't see the change. That's really what I'm trying to tell you. In principle. Even the 844 system, the talk around it and the principle and the thing around it were not that different from the CBC. Yet the real measure of all these systems ought to be the outcome as is envisioned and as is evidenced in the learner. Yeah. End product of this entire process is learner. And I'm thinking and I'm seeing that in an institution where, for instance, the student, I'm not even using pupil, I'm using student to teacher ratio is manageable. You're talking about 15, 20, probably up to 30. One can talk about that evidence and the evidence. And yet, these institutions are in the minority. The majority of the learner in this country falls into that category where the classes...
Crowded classroom.
Precisely, and also resource poor.
So then if that is happening, how then will the one who is grading against these expectations with these challenges on one side be able to assess this learner to a true representation of where they are? Is that one of the challenges that is being faced, Jean?
Yes, that's a challenge. Yeah,
so
that's a challenge.
Do we see a situation whereby the true assessment of a learner then may not actually be reached because of the other challenges being faced in the same system?
It's actually compromised from the get-go because take, for instance, let's forget the institutions of learning in centers like urban centers and look at the majority, say, in the rural areas. You're talking about a place that is far-flung. You're talking about just what a learner has to do in the morning before they get to school and just the dynamics. And you're looking at the CBC and you're looking at this parent who is the parent of this child in this remote area and their participation in this process that we're talking about. And I'm looking at the viability of it, and I'm looking at the practicability of it, and I'm seeing this thing is not a challenge, it's a massive challenge. So it means that the learner, who is the end product, is disadvantaged again from the get-go.
From the beginning. And I guess those are questions that now ought to go to those top honchos at the Ministry of Education. We're looking for the CS for education. Of course, even the directors who are in charge of the implementation of the CBC. Back to this assessment, and you will be taking in children to junior secondary school in January. So we are saying that unlike Standard 8 KCPE, the assessment, the examination is not being marked in Nairobi at NEC. The assessment of what they are doing is being marked by the teacher in school.
The ones they're school based.
It's
from grade 4.
The 60%.
Yes,
is,
the 60%. Yes.
And then now the 40% is what will now be taken to NEC for assessment. And then you'll get the results. How will you pick the children that you will intake in January?
Just as I said before, this transition is 100%. And therefore, it is not pegged on the scores that the learners obtained at grade 6. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. If you look at the Basic Education Act 2013, 54B, it states very clearly that every learner who has gone through the primary school education is eligible for admission into secondary school.
Okay.
That is the principle.
Okay.
Yes.
So for you, in your case, what I'm hearing you saying is all of Jin's students will come to you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Now this is because you two are connected. Now in a case where you two are not connected, because the pupils, Jin's pupils are actually now being told to choose. They're choosing schools. They're choosing national, extra county, sub-county.
Yes.
So those extra county, sub-county schools, how will they pick the learners who join them?
Yeah, we have done, during the registration, when the grade 6s were registering for this exam, the KPSEA, they made school selection. Okay?
Yeah.
So the first procedure or the first criteria will be on the selection.
Okay.
Which schools did this particular child select?
So we assume that national schools will pick those ones that are exceeding expectation.
I want to believe that national schools should go beyond, and because that is a measure of standard. Okay, but there is also other things about the quota systems and all that, the way it has been practiced even in the old.
Even quota system was grade-based.
Yes, it was grade-based, but this time we are going to blend, okay? Yeah, it is not purely grade-based, but there will also be need to look at other competencies. For example, you look at, let's say, a school that is science-based, and this is a school that is likely to take the STEM pathway at the senior school. Yeah, this school maybe will be keen to look at the competencies of these learners in the science-related, okay? So that they know once they transition them to from junior secondary to senior secondary, then they will be well prepared for the STEM.
Okay.
There are those that will be sport-based because we have a pathway on sports, and arts. So the schools that are likely to incline on that particular end will also consider these at the junior secondary level, especially those schools that will have junior secondary and senior school, and they are sports-based. They look for those competencies.
Does your school have any of those leanings? Makini Junior Secondary, is it sport-based? Is it STEM-based? Is it hybrid?
Or is it all-based?
It's student-based.
Well, we have 3 pathways.
Yes.
Yeah, we have the STEM, okay? We have the arts and sports.
This is in Makini.
Yeah, now, Makini, Makini, we will incline more on the side of STEM and sports.
Okay.
Yes.
So students who feel that they'd like to go into STEM and sports from Jean's primary will opt to come to you.
Yes.
Jean, I'm sure you are interacting with the learners and their parents. And there are those that already are thinking of going now to the other schools outside of Makini. So what do you tell them?
Apparently, I haven't gotten, because there is also the fear of parents taking their children at an early age. You know, these are children turning 11, 12 years to boarding schools. So most of the parents are opting for the primary schools, and the option that they're looking at as of now is just transitioning to our junior secondary.
Or within the same
Yes,
facility.
Yes. So they are actually not looking at maybe that might come later, but for now they're looking at where their children will be comfortable, looking at the age at which the children are getting into the junior secondary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have vacancies for children beyond the Makini Junior School?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Uh-huh.
Because currently,
how can we apply?
No, it's not us wanting to be students.
Yes.
No.
Yes. We can. Anybody who wants to join our Makini Junior Secondary School, first of all, you are welcome to Makini Junior Secondary School, and you can visit us. We have the admissions office. We have an open admission this month on the open interviews this month on 26th, and all are welcome because we have enough room and adequate facilities to take care of.
And also on our, you can also visit us on our website, and from there you will be guided.
Okay.
Yes.
So where is the campus? Where is the junior secondary campus?
The junior secondary campus is where we have the Ngong Road campus. So that is just opposite the Impala Club, along Ngong Road, Makini Road. Then you go to the junior secondary section. Yeah.
Well, Limu, thank you very much for joining us today. There's a lot. Still a lot to unpack in this issue of CBC, the transitions, and what happens to those that have gone to the junior secondary school. Then what happens? How do they go to the senior secondary school? Will they sit another exam after? Is it 3 years?
If I can just add something on that.
Yes.
When we talk about junior secondary, you see it has the 3 levels. There is the grade 7, the grade 8, and grade 9. So this is still part of the middle school education. So at the end of grade 9, the learners will sit for another assessment. That is the Kenya Middle Years Assessment. So it is through this assessment that now they will be placed into the different pathways in the senior school. Yes.
Depending on their competencies, on the skills that they have acquired, and so forth.
Okay.
Yep.
There's still a lot to unpack. We'll welcome you again. Mwalimu Jean Wachira is the head teacher at the Makini State House campus, and Jacob Asenje is the deputy head teacher at the Makini Junior Secondary School. They've been our guests this morning, unpacking the transition from grade 6 into junior secondary school, and still the management of the 844 into CBC transition, and just understanding all those things. Thank you very much, Walimu, for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.